My name is Jerome Ferry. My cameraman is Alan Eggers. We're doing a video interview with Cecil Reed, who has been an early entrepreneur, a businessman, and a politician, and a Cedar Rapidian for most of his life. Cecil, tell us when and where you were born.
I was born in Collinsville, Illinois in 1913. Stayed there till I was 5 years old. It was into the First World War time.
Well, before you go on, what was your folks' name?
My mom's name was Julia Jones, and she married William Garrett Reed, W.G. Reed.
Mm-hmm. What was his occupation, your dad?
And Dad was a janitor for the Rock Island Railroad in the depot there. That was a big railroad town. Burlington Northern ran through there, up through Cedar Rapids and to Minnesota.
Yeah. Did you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes, I had 4 brothers and 3 sisters. My oldest brother was George Frederick Reed, Lee Wallace Reed, James Reed, he's still alive. Jim and I were born a year apart. Everyone that sees us said we look like twins. I said, maybe they got rid of the wrong one, I don't know.
So, when did you move to Cedar? When did the family move to Cedar Rapids then?
But let me fill you in a little bit there. I'm not going to wonder too much, but Dad was on that Manpower Mobility Act, and during the war, if you had something that could help with the ordnance plant.
War effort?
Yeah, war effort, yeah. So they sent Dad to Rock Island, Illinois. We lived then in Devonport for a while. In fact, I started school there, Harrison School, on the end of Harrison Street Hill. Dad was looking for work then. The war was over. They got rid of everybody in the plant, in the ordnance plant, and he moved from there to Omaha, Nebraska, because they were hiring at the big packing plant up there. We moved there from Davenport. And then the railroad said, we can use you, Bill, if you want to go to Estherville, Iowa. So they sent him up there because they had a big Rock Island roundhouse. And he went to work in the depot in Estherville, Iowa. My cousin was also there, and he was a master mechanic at the roundhouse. And very unusual for those days. He was just getting into welding when they quit having blacksmiths. So it was a good time for him. But then Dad heard about a job that was open here, and he bid on it and got the job at the old depot down there on the railroad tracks in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And we moved here in 1922. And
where did you have a home?
Dad found a home down on 5th Street. That house is still there, 912 South 5th Street. Mm-hmm. I drove by it this the other day to see if it looked anything like, and they put this vinyl on it, so it looks real nice.
So you have a lot of railroad memories of Cedar Rapids,
oh my!
Union Station.
You know, the thing that impressed me most, though, we rented a house at first, and Dad bought it. Around the corner from us was a Judge Leitner. On the corner was one of the top businessmen here, Nemechek. He had a big wholesale house. In those days, salesmen were big time. They called them drummers. Mr. Noble was a very rich salesman. He sold whole trainloads of food and all those things. And Mr. Bean was right across the alley from us. He raised fine horses. And on the corner, in the other corner, was Mr. Brown. He was a furrier. So it wasn't a bad neighborhood. You know, it was special. Most people were having to, in other cities, were having to live in certain places.
Segregated areas.
Yeah. Not that at all for us here. So we were real happy with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you remember the restaurants in Union Station? Was there a restaurant in there?
Oh, yeah, Paul Harvey restaurants. He had them in every Union Station across the country. The one here had a man in it. He was a chef cook named Mr. Brinker. Outstanding chef cook. He loved the way my mom did pastry, so she did all his pastry cooking for him. And in those days, you know, you didn't do much by automobile, so people would get on the train and come through Cedar Rapids so they could get some pie that my mother made.
You had mentioned a Kathy Adams.
Pardon?
Kathy Adams.
Yeah, Katie.
Katie.
Yeah. we looked up to the people in the depot, and I guess because Dad did, the train master was Mr. Dvorak, yeah, I guess you would say, and Katie Adams was the lady that took care of the women's room. And one of the nicest lady I've ever, as us kids, we thought she was just a queen. She always had a few pennies and some candy in her pocket. I guess for taking care of people, she found that was a good way to do things. So she was just nice as she could beat everybody.
This train master, would that have been Milo Dvorak?
That was it, Milo Dvorak. Uh-huh.
Your dad, working for the railroad for all of these years, did he have a pass that he could ride?
Oh, my, yes. He had, because of his tenure, I guess, he had not only a pass, but he had what they called a foreign pass. Our whole family, that lived in the house, could travel free on any other rail line there was because of that foreign pass.
Because you were black, did you have to ride in a certain place on the train?
Yeah, I think I told you, it was a Jim Crow car, they called it, because Jim Crow was the man that started the segregated traveling arrangements. And he used the Mason-Dixon line as a place where you change and get on the Jim Crow car when you're going south. But we had those experiences, and I guess the real funny thing I wanted to tell you about was my dad looked like a white man. So they'd let him on the regular train until they saw us. Us kids, I know Dad didn't like it, but us kids got a big kick out of that because he'd always have to go back where we were. We loved traveling. Mom would always fire up a bunch of chicken and bread and butter and put it in old-fashioned hat boxes the women used to carry. And we'd have a ball. We didn't have popcorn, all that crap, but other kids had, but boy, did we have chicken.
You had told about your memories that your folks used to board travelers coming through Cedar Rapids.
Oh, yeah. In every town that was small, there was no place for the travelers to stay because they couldn't stay at the hotels. Or the entertainers that came to the vaudeville houses here. Marion Anderson, Duke Ellington, Cab Calloway, they'd have them come out to Thomas Park to that dance pavilion and Seymour Acres now. They'd have to stay at our homes. So everyone would buy a big house or rent a big house and keep 3 or 4 extra rooms nice and clean for the people that travel. There was a gentleman at the Majestic Hotel up there right about where the viaduct runs now. He would go to each one of our homes and see how nice they were, and then he would decide he'd put Duke Ellington here, or Mary Anderson here, or Cab Calloway here.
That was a good second income for your folks.
You needed that. Things were hard then, really depression. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Trolleys. Do you remember the early trolleys in Cedar Rapids? The trolley cars?
Oh, sure. Yeah. The Black Methodist Church we attended was right on Fifth Avenue, right off Fifth Avenue, and on the alley there on 7th Street. When the trolley would go by, us kids would lay in that. The Syrian fellow had a garden. We'd lay in the garden. When they'd go by at night, we'd run out and pull the trolley loose. And the lights would go off, the sparks would start flying. And he'd jump off and start cussing us and run us away. But we rode the trolley every place. Yeah. When I was going with Ev, I used to go clear out. She worked for a rich lady way out on Cottage Grove. And I would take the streetcar out there, the Beaver car. Make sure not to miss the last one. It was 1 o'clock, or you'd have to walk home. In fact, there was a lot of things that weren't good, but there was a lot of fun too with the whole process.
Do you remember your dad's first automobile?
Oh yes.
Did he have an automobile?
He sure did.
When you were young?
Dad bought an old Buick. It looked like a boat. I don't know whose it belonged to, but he got it for only $15, and he just, there was a fellow here who was a chauffeur. We had quite a few black chauffeurs in town, a lot of rich people here. Louis Davison, he was a good friend of the family. He said, teach Cecil how to drive. They call me Dude, because I like to dress up. He said, teach Dude how to drive. He took me downtown, said, take the car home. So I drove it home. He didn't tell me how to put on the brakes. In those days, they had the real high curbings. We wouldn't have a lot of gutters, so they had high curbings and the water would flow down the street. So I decided after the third time around the thing, and Dad tell me I better stop. I pulled over real close to the curb and let it rub until it stopped the car.
Did you have a driver's license then?
A driver's license, all you had to do was go down and give them 50 cents and they gave you a driver's license.
Did your dad drive?
No, never did learn to drive. Neither did Mom. But all the rest of the family could drive. At age 16, when the two black guys that worked for the police station would go on vacation, I would drive. I was 16 years old. The first time, I remember the chief of police, I can't remember his name, but...
Benish, perhaps?
Yeah, Dick Benish. He said, Cecil, our first call here for all you have, son. I said, I kind of hate to tell you, but it's a bank robbery. He said, you just slow down, don't stop. I said, don't you worry, you guys be sure to jump, because I could do it much slower. But he was a great guy. He and his brother ran a drugstore down by St. Wenceslaw's Church. Mm-hmm. And the Benishes were brothers to the president of Czechoslovakia here in this town.
Wow. Hunter Airport. Do you have any memories of Hunter Airport?
I used to go out there just to watch Mr. Hunter take off and land, and us kids thought he was like a hero. You know, he had the white scarf and the black, the brown helmet or whatever it was they wore, and dark glasses. Boy, we thought he was really something. His fancy pants, you know.
How about, was you ever a newspaper boy?
I sure was, for the Gazette, for a man named Alex Fiddler. He ran the distribution part of the thing. Boy, he was a nice one. He not only did that, but he refereed all the Golden Glove fights. And he had almost all of us guys that carried papers fight for him. And we got a lot of practice because you had to fight for your corner downtown.
You had a corner instead of a route?
Right, yeah. We were salesmen on the corners.
What corner did you have?
My corner was right at 1st Street and 2nd Avenue. That was a good corner. But, boy, you had to fight to keep it. The different guys, maybe 3 or 4 fights every evening. And people used to like to see us fight, so we started having what they call battle royals. And the white guys would have us come and fight at their, what did they call it?
Golden Gloves, probably? Or?
No, they'd have big parties on Friday night. And they would have us come and do a battle royal. So we got, you get $5 if you got knocked out, and 25 if you were the last one standing. So we learned how to throw the fights. We'd take turns winning the 25 and share everything.
In this newspaper business, did you ever know a Mr. Keeble?
Oh, yeah. Mr. Keeble was a fine man. He found out that I was one of the honest paper boys. He could trust me to load my own bags and load my own wagon and all that. And he lived he had a big home right across the street from IC Church. And he'd have me come up there early in the morning. He'd let me use a bicycle, the same as if it was mine, because I would haul 3 bags of papers all the way to Marion to that Catholic church over there every Sunday morning. And all I had to do was leave them there. I didn't have to leave. I'd come back and sell them from the IC Church.
Why was that above and beyond your corner downtown that you'd work?
Yes,
you'd work IC.
Yeah, that was on Sunday.
You'd work IC Church too.
Yeah, I did. I was selling at the Methodist, but they only had church once. The Catholics had church 5 times. So I would started selling over there, and you could sell 5 different times. So it worked out real good.
Motion pictures. Do you remember any of the old theaters in town? And
oh yeah.
What could you expect to see at the different theaters?
On all the small theaters, like on First Avenue, was the Rialto, and the Palace was on 2nd Avenue, and the Isis on 2nd Avenue, the Grand. We'd go there, and the lady played the piano or the organ, all that stuff, We'd see, for 16 cents, we could see 3 cowboy shows and the news, and get a sack of popcorn for a nickel. So we had a good time in those places. Didn't have all kinds of pop, but they had cold drink.
Did you remember the Majestic?
The Majestic is the one I got. You get a kick out of. Alex Fitter, he really liked me, and there was a chance to see Lon Chaney in the Phantom of the Opera, and I really wanted to see that, but nobody else cared about it. So I went to see it, and I didn't get out till midnight. And most guys would be afraid to, but my dad was a railroad man, and that's a pretty safe place to be on a railroad track. I think I did it in about nothing flat. I ran all the way home. Because boy, that Lon Chaney was a scary looking guy. Jeepers creepers. You know, I saw that the other night. It was by Charles Lawton.
A lot of memories come flooding back to you.
Yeah, it sure did.
How about parks in Cedar Rapids? Did you have any favorite parks that you went to?
Oh, yeah. Over by, it's now General Mills, I guess. It used to be the Pennington Ford Starch Works. The Riverside Park. Mm-hmm. Bigger than it is now because I think they bought or sold some of it. The thing I remembered most about it, on the 4th of August, we used to have Emancipation Day. That's when they freed the slaves. And that would always be our big picnic down there. And I remember the men would go in and dig the big pit and start a fire and put the grate over it. And then the women would start barbecuing half a pig and half a beef and all that sort of thing. And people would begin to line up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to eat barbecue down there. To me, that was a big deal because that was one time that black and white people all got together, and we had a good time. Nobody got in a fight or argue or anything. It was just a beautiful time.
That was probably as big as the 4th of July celebration, August 4th.
Yeah.
To the black people.
And we would kind of be the forefront of that whole thing. Mm-hmm. So it was great. And us kids really loved to see it, you know.
Dances. Did you go to any dances when you were a teenager?
Yeah, we had... there used to be an interurban depot straight behind the railroad depot about 2 blocks down on 2nd Street and 4th Avenue. Across the street from there was a big Rialto dance hall, and we had a copy of the Trianon and Dance Land and all of those. And the white ones would let us rent. After the white people got done at midnight, we'd rent it from midnight till morning. The one at the Rialto and the Oddfellows Hall would let us rent anytime. So we had some good parties there, and because there was not many black folks in any town in Iowa, we'd send out pamphlets all over the place, and everybody would come from Marshalltown, Waterloo, and Des Moines, and we'd kind of help each other out that way.
Mm-hmm. Chautauqua. Did you ever hear of the term Chautauqua?
Yeah. Billy Sunday made those great minister from the old days. And I, for a long period, never heard of him much. And then all of a sudden, when I got in the state legislature, I was invited to come up to one at Chadron, Nebraska. I'd never heard of Chadron, Nebraska before.
You spoke at a Chautauqua event,
I spoke at Chadron, Nebraska and St. Joseph, Missouri. At Chautauqua, and Ramsey Clark was there. Will Rogers Jr. was on the same program with me, and I can't remember Sanford or something like that. He was a United States Senator at the time. His picture's over here somewhere on the wall. But we got to be pretty good friends. And the one in St. Joe had one of the top radio announcers in those days. I never forget that. I lost my voice because I had not been used to speaking outside. And he threw me a lemon and said, bite into that, and my voice came back just like that.
You remember the circuses when you were a kid?
Douglas, I was trying to remember that man's name because people would remember Douglas. I can't recall his last name, no. But he was a great radio announcer. He passed away not long ago.
Wouldn't have been Fairbanks.
Huh?
Wouldn't have been Fairbanks.
Oh, no. He was a radio announcer. Doug Fairbanks was a movie star.
Circuses. You remember circuses when you was a kid?
Sure do. We lived on 5th Street, and down by the railroad tracks where they did a lot of switching down in there. on 3rd Street and 9th Avenue, there was a big field. We used to call it just a field, us kids. We'd go down there and play. But that's where the circus would come. We always had a kick out of it because the elephants wouldn't walk across 8th Avenue Bridge. It was shaky. They'd have to take them all the way down to 3rd Avenue Bridge to come across a good solid bridge. But we'd go down and then help them put up the tents and drive the stakes and run and get the rope and the water for the elephants and all that. And then we'd get a ticket to get in the circus for that. So we got pretty close to many things that were going on there.
Green's Opera House. Did you ever have the opportunity to go to Green's Opera House?
Oh boy, yes. That was many of the vaudeville shows that came to town. Big productions. We'd see come to town there. The one big black one I remember was DeLaud. It was like a black people going to a black heaven. I never heard such singing in my entire life, and I have heard a lot of good singing, but that was some of the kind of things we used to see. And minstrel shows. People would just pile in there from all over Iowa to the minstrel shows that they brought in here.
In later years, did they have boxing at the Green's Opera House?
Oh, sure. That was, yeah, we brought some the top heavyweights here, Tut Jackson and different ones, Bearcat Wright from Omaha, Nebraska. Yeah. They brought some of the best ever here, yeah.
The YMCA, was you active in the YMCA?
Blacks couldn't go to the YMCA, even though it was a Christian organization. But Mr. Joyce, a black man, was a janitor there, and he would make arrangements for us to be able to swim there once a week on Saturday morning. And then we'd help him clean up the pool afterwards. So that was a great thing. And then they let us go to the YMCA camp, and that was really outstanding. At the end of the season, Cookie Batchel and his wife and his daughter and Russell Knapp, he was a volunteer from Cole College, now a big-timer here, they would stay and let us come to camp. And we had a great time there. It was cold, but we swam anyway. We had fun singing, and Mr. Batchel could play the piano, and his daughter would lead the singing, and she was our lifeguard. So they just did a great job. Every year we'd sure look forward to going to camp.
You had mentioned, you'd told the story about they used to take the kids snipe hunting.
Oh, that was, they did that to us there, yeah. We didn't know there wasn't any such thing as a snipe. Yeah. We would go and snipe something out there in the middle of no place, up there by Camp Wapsie, Central City area. Kind of wild up there anyway. It was scary. We'd be out there beating on the, waiting to fill up that sack with snipe, dirty bums. Oh, I think back, but it was fun. We'd stay out there for 2-3 hours, working our heads off, trying to catch a snipe.
Yeah. The Cherry Sisters. Do you have any memories of the Cherry Sisters? No.
Yeah, people laughed, and I felt so sorry for those ladies. They were actually so lousy, they were good. People would come from all over the country, and they made Cedar Rapids famous. They went to Broadway and the whole works. Oh, they were lousy. But they were famous, and they're in the history of vaudeville. So, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Grant Wood. Do you have any remembers of Grant?
I used to hear my sisters talk a lot about Grant Wood. They went to McKinley Middle School. It was middle school then. My oldest sister Frances and my sister Lula, they're the oldest. Brother George was already out of school when we came here. They would tell how Grant Wood not only was a good teacher, but he would tell the girls how they should dress and what kind of shoes they should wear and all those things. Little extra that ordinarily teachers, all they do is teach. He taught them to be ladies, and the boys better be gentlemen when they're in his class. So they were really impressed with him as a teacher.
When you were growing up, Did you have to wear a lot of hand-me-down clothes?
I was a baby boy, so you can bet I did. I hated those damn pants that they were open-legged at the bottom. Oh, that was awful. And you had to wear long underwear, go to school, and I was the only black guy there, the only one with long underwear. Oh, boy, the guys would make fun of you until I got sick of it. And then I got out in the middle of the gymnasium and challenged everybody in there. From then on, they didn't laugh at me anymore. But Mom let me start wearing DVDs so I could buy them myself. So when I was shining shoes and selling papers, I said, I'm going to spend some of this on myself. So I started wearing what everybody else wore.
You had mentioned your mother was a good cook.
Oh, Mom.
What was her favorite dish?
Yeah,
as far as you were concerned.
As far as I was concerned, everything she cooked was my favorite. They say black people can fry chicken. Boy, she could really fry chicken. But she could take a lot of people don't know what they are, neck bones. And when she got in with those neck bones, Nat Cole and Count Basie, those guys would go nuts over neck bones and beans. Julia, fix some neck bones and beans and cornbread. Yeah.
When you were growing up, Cecil, was there drugs being used by teenagers?
Say that again.
When you were growing up, was there a drug problem with teenagers?
Never heard of drugs. No. When I got older, I used to kind of be like a bat boy for the Monarchs and the different black teams that come here. I didn't know what it was, but it would almost make you dizzy to ride in the same car with them. They were smoking, they called it weed, but I guess that's what the kids are smoking nowadays. Yeah.
How about gangs? Was there gangs? Was there street gangs?
No. But I tell you, there was this. The Czechoslovakians, had a gang, and the German kids had a gang. They kind of stuck together. And being from the Oak Hill area, us black guys thought we were Czechs. So we worked with it. We fought with the Czechs and helped them.
Was your folks church-going people?
Oh, my, yes.
Sunday was a special day in the...
Sunday was Sunday was a special day. We went to church. Dad was a twice-a-day goer. Mom, they had a lot of dinners to help because they didn't have a lot of collection. So they'd have dinners, and people from all over the city would come and eat. We made extra money that way for the church.
Did you have to go to Sunday? Did they send you to Sunday school?
Sunday school and Christian Endeavor. That was for the young people in the evening. Mm-hmm. And if Christian Endeavor, us guys would go down to BYPU or the Baptist, because some of the prettier girls were down there. So we'd kind of choose between how it moved around there.
When you were growing up
in Esterville, Iowa, they wouldn't let us go to church at all. We were the only black family, so we would have church in our home every night. Anyway, it was almost like church around that big round table. You had to read a verse of the Bible. I didn't think it was good in the Lord's sight, but if you didn't read one, you got a backhand. So you learn to read pretty fast. Make no mistakes. And Mom used to be a school teacher, so he'd always say, Julia, are they doing it right? Are they doing it right? Boy, otherwise, get the backhand. But to me, that was better than going to a church where I wasn't wanted. On Sunday afternoon, we'd go down by the river and have church. And Dad would catch some fish, and Mom would cook them right there on the plate. To me, that was real church. There was love there.
Being that we're in Esterville, Iowa, let's stop there for a moment.
Sure.
Did the railroad provide the black workers with housing?
Even here too, they had a little dormitory behind the depot, just across behind it, with about 16 rooms in it. And they'd have bunk beds in there. I never saw bunk beds before, but in there they're made out of 2x4s. But that's where they'd go. And they were all cooks and waiters anyway, so they did their own cooking. But when they came to Esterville, they'd come to our house on Sunday. And boy, we'd love to see that because they'd bring a lot of good food off the food car. And being all cooks, they'd outdo each other. We'd get all the different kinds of fancy food. They'd bring it out. Boy, we had a good time.
Did you live in a house in Esterville?
No. They wouldn't sell us a house. And the railroad owned quite a bit of property. So they let Dad use 23 acres, and they took the wheels, 3 boxcars, and brought them out and made a house. And Dad was pretty good carpenter, and he had have us kids help because he'd teach us how to do the same. He built a big room in between. So it was a great big family room in the middle, I would call it that. The cars were former refrigeration cars, so they were real warm in the winter and cool in the summer. And we had them leave the ladders on them. So us kids would pretend they were moving, you know. We'd just get up there and call the nations, call the trades, try to act like a conductor or something. But it was fun. We made fun out of a lot of things that other people would have probably cried over.
Ku Klux Klan, did you ever have any association with any gatherings of Ku Klux Klan? And
you know, I had heard about them, and there was a fear. I had never seen any. And then Chuck Foreman, he was a big shot insurance man here. He talked them into letting us black kids go to Boy Scout camp. So we started Dr. Brashears was our only black professional. He was a dentist. He took us over there to Stone City, just outside of Stone City. They had Mr. Green, who owned the big quarries up there, gave that to the Boy Scouts. We were there. We had a Troop 12 was our black troop. We were in the last tent. We went to bed, and boy, when at the middle of the night, the lights, I never saw such a bright light. We looked down there, and there was a great big cross down in the valley, burning. It was, 12 years old. We were scared to death. Mr. Foreman jumped out. He didn't act like he had any fear at all. He could tell the young men who were volunteers from Cole College, who were not fear of anything anyway. They're all athletes. Come on out here. So we got some guys we got to get rid of. And they went out, and he gave them blank pistols. And those guys, they started running down in there. They hurdled the fence just like hurdlers and started shooting in the air, and boy, did those guys clean out down there. The thing that us boys really liked, the next morning, Foreman, after reveille, they woke us up, we ate breakfast. He said, now I'm going to ask you guys to come with me. We're going to take our horses, and we're going to ride through Stone City and let them know we're still here. And we did.
It's a nice story. Was young people, were they allowed to date, blacks and whites, allowed to date?
We didn't do anything together. After ball games, we would play for the team, and then they'd always be sure and take us home, and then they'd go to the after parties, the dance parties. And that's the way life was, so we accepted that. You weren't supposed to be together. And we didn't make a big deal of it. The kids that wanted to be around us would come over, and we'd have fun together. Things went well.
Where did you go to grade school, Cecil?
Adams School. They tore it down. A guy named Pajinski bought it and made a junkyard out of it. It was on 5th Street and 4th Avenue.
Mm-hmm. You remember your teacher?
Miss Adams was the principal.
Adams School.
Miss Owens was a wonderful, wonderful teacher that I think kept me from going down the wrong path. I was having a hard time, name calling is worse than anybody knows. It really tears you apart. And I was going through that every day. And that lady put her arm around me and told me I could be a poet laureate. And I did become poet laureate. And I think that's why I wrote books and did pretty well writing. Bills in the House. It helped me in everything. Chamber of Commerce, state legislature. Put on symposiums on political science now and all those things. I think that lady helped me do all that.
Because it gave you that feeling of confidence
That's
that you
right.
could do it.
And that I was somebody. I wasn't something to be called names, and didn't have to believe that I was nothing. You know.
High school, where'd you go to high school?
Old Washington High. It was old down there on the railroad tracks. I think the veterans near Green Square Park, somewhere where the veterans building is now. There was a red across the field where we used to practice was a red light district. They had a room called 219 where they sent all the guys that made noise, and everybody, all the kids that were loud or weren't doing like they should. They called it 219. It was a study hall for bad people. I was number one. But only because I wanted to see what was going on over in the red light district. But one of the poems I won an award for was about that 219. So I wrote a poem about the sound of hissing steam, sound like a football team, and all the sounds I heard. It seemed like a thundering herd, that whole business. And I won an award for that. So I over the years, I tried to make something good out of bad things.
That was a detention hall or a detention room.
Yeah.
Were you into sports, Cecil, in Washington?
I was more of a dancer. I didn't do a lot in sports. Pretty good basketball player. At McKinley, they still have my picture up there. They tell me I haven't been up there. But that was 70 years ago. I was more of an entertainer than I was a track man. Although I got to be pretty good at running because guys would gang up on me rather than fight me one at a time. So I got to be a pretty good track man. Yeah.
Did you find high school easier for you than grade school was? Was you becoming more confident or about yourself?
And the kids were beginning to accept me because I was a good dancer and a good entertainer, more than otherwise.
You were talented, probably more so than a lot of the other kids were.
Yeah. And the teachers would call me, because Dad worked us so hard and we did so much work, whenever the teachers needed help, I'd carry people up the steps for them or whatever they needed. So I got to be fairly popular around there on the different things that I did.
Do you remember any of your classmates did any of them become famous? Or?
The one I remember most is Shorty Nissen, George Nissen. He started Nissen Trampoline Company. And he was a dear friend, still is, in San Diego now, but always a dear friend. And Barney Paint, I think he passed away last year or so. Barney was kind of a loner, but just one of those real nice. And Don DeFore, the movie star. I went to school with a bunch of real nice people.
Were you a friend of Don DeFore's?
Oh yeah, we did something called the Yellow Jack together. I was a native and he was a star. Yeah. I had about 3 lines to say, and I won the award that night. I think he didn't like that too well.
Was this at a community theater or at school?
Yeah, the community theater. It was up there in the old YMCA building. Well, before they moved down there to Olympic on 3rd Street.
Did you attend?
Mainly, I was a tap dancer and an entertainer from that score. Imitate people and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you and your sister and your brother.
Yes, sir. Three gold flashes. Wally went to St. Louis to a dancing school, and while he was gone, the different stars that come through, we'd ask them questions, and Nicholas brothers were outstanding dancers, different ones. They taught me and Edith how to dance. So when Wally came back, we just joined up 3 gold flashes and started dancing all over the place. And we wore these gold shiny uniforms, and we had the formal, and we had the kind that looked like servants, because you made more money if you looked like a servant than you did if you looked pretty classy in some places. So we did it all.
And where would you perform then?
We started out with Dempsey Jones. He was a county recorder here, and he was real popular in the small towns and the veterans programs and the civic clubs and all that. They'd have these big dinners, and they'd have us come. The women would do the cooking and serve everybody, and then we'd entertain them. And then we entertained at a lot of stag parties, a lot of different places. When we did that down there in Rock Island, we worked with two guys that finally became Amos and Andy. They put on that black stuff and put on a big show. And later on, we saw them on TV. I said, look at there. Those are the same guys we worked with when we were just kids down there in Rock Island, Illinois.
Alan's
You can zoom that, can you? Oh, boy.
he has taken a picture of the 3 gold flashes. And now, is this something that did you ever think about later in life? If you would have pursued that further, you could have went on to big time?
I believe we could have. Mom didn't want Carol or Edith to travel, and probably just as well. Women weren't well thought of if you travel on the road in those days, and
She didn't think it would be safe.
no.
Right.
And Mom liked for all of us to carry that name of Reed with honor, and so did Dad. So, but I off and on, I kept right on dancing until I was around 50 or so.
Which one is that of you? Which one are you on there?
No.
On the right or the left?
Let's see. That's me on this side.
On the
On the
left.
left, okay.
On the left side? So how far out of town would you go to perform that?
Oh, Chicago.
You do?
If we were in town, like I told you, we were never top notch, but we could take anyone's place that they'd call us to take. So we were good enough to do it that way. And you can imagine with all the people around, there was always somebody sick, always somebody having a death in the family, or drunk, or whatever, you know. So we would take their places. And
How long did your brother continue doing that? When did you disband?
well, Wally decided to go to Hollywood, and they changed it. He was not just a Thames out there. He was he taught people to dance. You know, they called him a choreographer.
Choreographer,
Yeah.
yes.
Edith, she kept right on singing, but not as a traveling singer. She would sing all over places here. She taught the kids at church to sing. She ran the choir for 20 years. She could play the piano. She could sing in 4 or 5 languages. So she was called on all over the state of Iowa. I kept on dancing when I wanted to, you know, and we had some good times. I'd play as MC at some of the big things. When the state legislature would put on their big annual meeting, they'd have me come and be the MC, and I could do a little bit of dancing, whatever it took. And so I didn't quit dancing until I was about 54 years old.
Did you get to know a lot of black entertainers when they come to town?
They stayed at our homes. Heck, yes. And then in the state, down at the Foxhead Tavern, because I had been...
You mentioned the Foxhead. Where was the Foxhead Tavern?
It was right, you know where the post office is now? Across the street.
The old post office.
The old post office.
Huh?
The old post office on First Street?
Yeah, yes, the old post office. No, yeah, on First Street. Because the old post office is up there on 2nd Avenue, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, one on First Street. Across the way there, before that, it was all black. That was Dad Baker's place. He had a tavern, and he had a restaurant, and he had a pool hall. Later on, it was all white-owned after the Depression. They lost everything, you know. So Rod Kenyon started that, and because I was an entertainer and knew quite a few of the people, he used to send me to Chicago, pay my way in, hotel bill and everything, and I would talk to different ones about coming back. And I remember the King Cole Trio playing at the Capitol Lounge right across the alley from the Chicago Theater, and Louis Jordan and his Tiffany 5. Both of them played there. I went to Chicago. I got him hooked up with a guy named Burl Adams. We'd bring him here to the Foxhead Tavern. WMT would record them. We'd take their recordings and then let Burl hear them. He had what he called Mutual Casting Agency. I'll never forget that place. It was 610 North Michigan Avenue. Because I walked all the way from the south side up there one day. It's now a Mutual Casting Agency, and you hear that everywhere you go out in Hollywood. But we would play there take their records, take them in there and let Burl hear them, and then he'd hire them, or he would tell us whether he thought they were any good. He took King Cole, he took the Timpani 5 group, and a man named John White. He was a real dark, blind man, but beautiful white, wavy hair. Boy, he was a sight to see. And could he play piano? To me, he was better than King Cole.
Did you have a shoe shine business? Did you shine shoes for one of your jobs?
For other people, I didn't own it. I started shining shoes down for Bill Overall down there in the Roosevelt Hotel. In those days, you know, we didn't have airplanes, but they had special trains that came to the Iowa games. They'd all end up down there at the Roosevelt Hotel. So we'd say shine shoes so long you couldn't hardly straighten up. But in those days, you can imagine, each of us kids made $16 to $20. The people were just liberal, you know, just pay. Bill Overall owned 3 homes over in Marion, and he was a shoe shiner. Us kids that did that, so pretty soon, and at that time, no matter what your education was, you could be a shoe shiner, a chauffeur, or a cook or a waiter. Or you could work at the packing house, or at Starch Works or Quaker Oats. Period. So no matter what you had, the fellow that shined shoes at the Grand barber shop, when he went to the Army, they found out he was a pharmacist and put him to work at that. And thank God for the GI Bill, he ended up with his own drugstore. And another one from here had his drugstore in Chicago on 63rd Street in Cottage Grove until 2 years ago. But they had been working as shoe shiners here.
When I first come to Cedar Rapids, there was shoe shine men at the Danceland Ballroom.
Yeah,
I think they had 3 or 4 chairs there.
Yeah.
And I think they were manned by black.
Yeah, that's right.
Black people.
Yeah. Fremont Herman used to do that. And then there was one behind the Paramount Theater, and Mr. Toombs. He had about 12 chairs. It was busy all the time.
That was back in the days when gentlemen would have their shoes shine quite regularly.
Oh, my God, yes. It kept their shoes just perfect. And every man dressed beautiful in those days. No casual. You had a tie and shirt and their whole business. Black women made a living washing and ironing shirts for the rich white men in this town. I mean, they gave them big bucks for doing that because they liked the way they did their shirts rather than the laundry. Laundry, wear your shirts out, they use so much, what do you call it?
Starch.
Bleach in them. Yeah.
Bleach and starch. Was there a lot of respect for the adults? Did children have a lot of respect or show respect for adults and authority?
That's for sure. And for your teachers and for your school principals. And there was such a difference in how things are today. Yeah. And any grown-up, I don't care black or white, don't talk back. Don't call them by their first name. Yeah. And if you had it, like my dad, he'd go up there to all 3 of the schools where his kids were. You take care of the teaching, I'll take care of the discipline. Let me know. That meant, don't you come home with any notes or anybody getting in touch with your folks. Cause boy, when you found your head, you had to put it back on. But we respect Miss Prescott was our principal at McKinley. She looked like you should respect her. She dressed like you should respect her. She acted that way, and all of the teachers are the same.
Yeah. Do you remember any black businesses that were in existence then when you were growing up, Cecil?
Oh, yeah, and that, I don't know what, I look back and they say there was a lot of prejudice, but Dad Baker owned 3 businesses right across the street from the old post office there, down there on 1st Street. Like I was saying a while ago, he owned a restaurant. He owned a barber shop and a pool hall, and black and whites came in and out of his place all the time. in the next block down on the right-hand side, Mr. Nelson. I always get a kick out of him. He ran his barber shop, but he called it a tonsorial parlor. And he dressed like he owned the world. Remember they used to wear, you probably heard about it, they wore garters on their sleeves, fancy dress coats. Boy, he was one of those barbers that did all the fancy stuff with the big room and all that, hot towels. That was down on that street. Mr. Toombs had the shoe shining place, a big one right there across from the depot, the mountain. And Andy Gray ran the 12-chair shop in the Urban Depot. He was considered a businessman, made good money. And around the corner, I don't know if you remember where Ross Steakhouse used to be.
Yes, I do.
Right around that, behind where Ross Steakhouse was a Washington Dairy Lunch. It was all white tile. And that was ran by a man named French Perkins, a black man. And then right behind the depot, there was a real influx of those, they'd bring in those little metal buildings and sit them on the corner. And a man and his wife would cook and serve. They had like a bar all the way around, a food bar. There was a couple that came in here. They cooked and waited table. They did the whole thing all by themselves. And the people just flocked in there to eat. And they made a fortune. They went to Florida and bought a mansion afterwards.
You had told me about the Iceman that used to come to your neighborhood.
Oh, yeah. I never did know his name, but we all liked him like he was part of our family. Everybody was nice to him. Dad would give him a little home brew when he come by. But us kids, us guys especially, really looked up to him. He had that big old apron on and great big arms. And he'd say, I want 50 pounds today. I want 100 pounds today. We're going to have company over. He'd put that thing on his back and walk up the stairway, put it in the ice box, at the top. Or sometime he didn't need but 25 pounds, but he'd bring that all up. We thought he was just something special. All of us wanted to be an Iceman someday.
You had mentioned home brew. Did your dad make home brew or wine?
Yeah, he made home brew and dandelion wine. And I guess it was pretty powerful. I never did drink in my life. But we had a cousin that moved into Esteville after we left there. And they would come and they'd get going down there, eating that old Limburger cheese and crackers and drinking home brew. To me, all of it smelled like hell. But they had a good time.
During Prohibition, was there a lot of bootlegging going on?
Yeah, and that was the time that I worked with the chief of police, Mr. Benish. And he'd say, Cecil, we're going to go out dig up some plants this morning. And they weren't plants. He knew where they buried all that big old silver cans of alcohol. He knew just where they'd buried it. So they'd bring it and put it down in the basement in the police station. I had it all fenced in so nobody could get to it. But they seemed to know exactly where to get it. They knew the bootleggers. And the bootleggers were independent type guys, Today they're stock car drivers. But they used to hip up their cars and outrun the police. Cedar Rapids was even better than that. You could call the yellow cab company and they'd bring it out to you.
Was the mafia, did they have any connections in this area?
There was a different kind of mafia. There was Italian mafia, there was Jewish mafia, there was Czechoslovakian mafia, the German mafia, Italian mafia, Pretty Boy Floyd, and those different ones all had their own name. They owned, the Czech mafia owned Hilltop Cafe at Dubuque, Iowa, East Dubuque. But you could buy your liquor here and whatever you needed. They'd send it to you, and they were nice people. They weren't gangsters. They were nice people.
Yeah. Businessmen.
Yeah, sure.
You were telling me a story about your brother George.
Yeah.
In hot tamales.
Yeah. we lived through probably a depression that nobody will ever know. Boy, that was a depression. We made the most of it, you know. But I remember George, he found out that people liked hot tamales. And his wife and my mom and a fellow named Harold Thompson, Peanuts they called him, and a fellow named Goldie Steele, their wives would come, as kids would go out and get corn husks, and they'd wash them and clean them all up nice. Then the mom would make the ingredients for the hot tamales. And George came up with the idea of buying those old coffee urns that were big as they used to use in the hot dog joints. And you could, instead of the gas, he'd put the canned heat under there. And those people bought homes and cars and lived off of those for almost 10 years during the Great Depression, selling hot tamales around town.
The Douglas Starch Works. Any memories of this Douglas Starch Works explosion?
I sure do remember that. We lived on, as I said, 912 South 5th Street. Right next door was a lady named Lewis, and she had 2 boys and a girl. Her husband got killed in the big explosion. I guess she got some kind of a check, but she also cooked and cleaned the house for people. She put 3 kids through school. One of them became a school superintendent in Chicago, so she didn't do too bad. Real nice lady.
Do you remember the day of the explosion?
I don't remember that. I just know what they told me. But I remember this. My brother-in-law, my sister, that danced and sang with us, he was in the last explosion. And I remember going over to University of Iowa Burn Center to see him. I was in the Commissioner for Employment Security then. I drove over there. Bob was a big man, 245-pound muscle, like mad. He was they had him all in a big shroud, like they put meat in down to packing house, with linseed oil. Had his fingers fastened apart with wires so they wouldn't grow together. All his eyes were just a big glob of crap, He heard my voice, so he said, "Cease, I hear you out there. Come on in here." He started cussing, He was a bad-talking guy. But I'll never forget this. It must have been all. He told me about how he ran, and balls of fire would be rolling at him, coming down the way. And he finally said, I wonder, his knee was still bad, but he would get up against that hot iron, and he said, I knew I wasn't going to fall over in the pit. I guess it was 4 or 5 stories down on the other side of that rail. That's why he kept track of where he was, because he couldn't see. He said, at one point, I was ready to give up, and I said, God, if I'm going to die, please don't let me die this way. He said, right at that time, the whole side of the building blew up. He said, boy, that fresh air was really something. And Morris Chipley, who died just a year or so ago, was the head of the crew that was saving people. And he said he heard his voice out there. And he said, yes, I'm in here. Morris, get me out of here. And they did. But he credits those guys that were saving people for saving his life.
Mm-hmm. Cecil, when and who did you marry?
I married Evelyn Collins. I met her one morning. I was in the floor cleaning business, and I was going over to clean People's Bank up, and I saw this big old Chandler car coming. Her father had been transferred to here as minister, and I saw this, had all kinds of stuff hanging on the top and on the back, as much as they could haul, and the kids were in the car, and I said, they asked me where the Methodist church was and where the parsonage was, where they stayed. And I told them, and I said, boy, I like that lady in there. So I started trying to go with her. They moved to Davenport, and there was so much competition down there. I said, I better marry her and bring her on home and make it safe. And I proposed, and she accepted me. So we got married down there.
What did her folks do?
her folks, her father was a Methodist minister, and people that know Methodist church, they had what they call Methodist sickers that moved them to different places, 3 or 4 years here, 3 or 4 years there. So he preached in Sioux City, he preached in St. James Church in St. Paul, he preached in Davenport, Iowa, and we got married in Davenport, Iowa, 1936. I was 23, she was 24.
Did she work outside of the home?
She worked at the Three Sisters dress shop here in Cedar Rapids for about 3 years. But she was such a good bookkeeper, and I was starting so many different businesses. We started doing things together. She took care of the books and the kids, and I took care of everything else. This is about middle of our life, around 50 or so. It was always a real good-looking lady. I always thought, anyway.
Is she still living, Cecil?
And we had some good times together. People say, Cecil, how in the world did you guys stay married 67 years? I said, well, it isn't over. You know, we're going to be married a long time yet. She's had some problems there now, but we went on a honeymoon every 2 years. We thought that was great. We went to some exotic place. There's pictures of her over there feeding the swallows at Capistrano. I didn't put them out. They didn't really care about the traveling. The kids didn't.
Oh, they didn't?
Too
young?
They like to eat, you know, what do you... there was a big place that sold root beer. Never did discriminate.
A&W?
Yeah, A&W. Over on the highway going into Marion. We'd drive all the way out there just to get a tenderloin and some root beer.
How many children did you have?
I had 4 children. The oldest was Carol. Pretty girl. Became a professor at KU.
You want to take them and hold them up, Cecil, one at a time?
Okay. Carol was the oldest. And she took drama at the University of Iowa and graduated with that. She liked business administration, especially in the human relations side. So she got her degree in that. In fact, she did so well they hired her at KU. She always loved to be in drama, so when she raised her 4 children, her husband left after she got a doctorate for him. She raised her 3 children. She had twins, a boy and a girl, and an older boy. After she raised them, she decided she'd go to New York, and darn her, she didn't get on Broadway with Spike Lee group, and did very well in that. And then she got sick, and we brought her home. She passed away of cancer not long ago. This is Richard. Richard went to Washington High and McKinley, and he was quite a swimmer. He was a high school All-American in swimming. So I guess he was kind of following the old man's steps there, that, and a pretty good football player. This is the middle boy. He was a natural-born athlete. Everything he did it well. And all 3 of the boys liked sports. They did football. Dick would be a swimmer in mid-season and a track man. Mike was a football, basketball, and track. And David was football, swimming, and track. So they all liked to do those different kinds of things. And did them very well.
And this here is
and this is
Cecil in his younger years.
Yeah. This one younger.
What year do you suppose that was?
It was in the 50s. Maybe even before that. I was getting up in age, I guess. In the state legislature, they took a lot of pictures of me. This is one of them. Also, they put this picture in the library. They named after me in the labor building down at Des Moines. So they kind of liked this one, and I did too. Yeah. This is my middle son, Mike, and his 3 boys. Mike has been married twice. He had 2 children by the first family. One of them is on Broadway, like her aunt was, and she's Once Upon an Island. It's an off-Broadway show, but it's been around a long time. She also knows something about relaxing, and that kind of stuff that you learn over in India. And
Meditating.
Yeah, meditating. That's it. So she has that, and people just line up. She has all women, but she's doing very well in there. And her brother is a teacher in Louisville, Kentucky. This is Mike's second family. You remember my 3 sons? I call these my 3 sons. Yeah, but they're all doing great. And this is my father. This is W.G. Reed, William Garrett Reed. He was to me a real role model. He taught us to respect women because of the way he treated my mom. Or nobody should. Don't you say anything, or don't even act bad around my mom. He was just a special kind of a man.
Did you say he was? He had some Indian blood in him.
Dad was Indian and Irish.
Yes.
Yeah. Both with a temper. Yeah. He was a great man. And this is my mom. Mom was a school teacher when he met her. Boy, she was a good mom, good cook. Everybody was different in those days. By 10 o'clock in the morning, Mom would have had all of us fed and off to school and the house clean. Clean as a pin. The only thing she did was feed the minister on Sunday that I didn't like, because he ate too much. But that was none of my business.
See, so you have had so many jobs in your life. Time constraints here isn't going to allow us, but what I could gather in reading about you, of course, you were a newspaper boy, you were a dancer, you and your brother and sister, you were a shoe shiner, a bartender, a waiter, a janitor, a cook, floor maintenance business, a floor maintenance business supply store. You had a network of music boxes, recording distributions, broiler chicken factory, a hotel owner, public speaker. You own the Sepia Hotel or Motel. You've done many, many lectures. How did you ever keep your sanity in doing all of this? Did you ever get burnout or?
It helped me keep my sanity. It was hard being black. But not hard if you tried a lot of different things, you know what I mean? There was an acceptance among the people that owned hotels because I was someplace they could send people they didn't want in theirs. I used that, you know. I started businesses. I didn't try to butt into anyone else's business. I went around and found out what no one wanted to do, and I started a business of that. Because that was a business, I had to make my own equipment because nobody made equipment for that. So we started another business. And then not many people knew how to take care of their floors. So we told them to save overhead underfoot. If you keep the dust off the floor, it isn't going to settle all over your furniture and your equipment and everything. So we kind of thought all that was worthwhile. And then Dad taught us not to be a problem to anyone. So when I went to California and I couldn't find a hotel, when I got home, I built one. You know, he said, you know, if it isn't there, do it. Don't complain if you ain't going to do something about it. And we did.
This was the Sepia?
Sepia Motel. Mount Vernon Road and Bertram Road. I bought the whole acreage because people didn't want me out there. But they said they couldn't sell the lots around me, so I bought the whole place so they wouldn't have to worry about the lots. But the neighbors did like us. There's a picture there somewhere. Neighbors would come over for a lunch. We began to have a picnic, and then it became an annual picnic. We had more people from in town than we had from out in the country coming to our big annual picnic every year.
Now this is just the office portion of the motel in this photo here.
The office and 3 rooms were in that building. Next door to it would hold an entire family or 4 separate rooms. And then there was a kind of a ditch there, and there was 4 more buildings like this one on down there that held 4 people each. We had a lot of people, though, that would rent the entire building, and their whole family would come along.
What would be in this area today?
The Indian Creek Nature Center. It was a beautiful area, it still is. Only they bulldozed everything I built out of there. Even my frontage road is gone, but nature really claims things back. It's beautiful again. But they tell me, I haven't been out, they tell me the old racetrack that we put in there is still there.
Would this been the Lincoln Highway?
Yes. Yeah, the old Lincoln Highway. And about a year ago, they featured it in the Lincoln Highway magazine. They featured the motel there.
Why did you pick the name of the motel?
Pardon me?
The name of the motel. Why did you pick
sepia
that?
motel is a brown substance that the octopus spits out when he's protecting himself or he wants to hide. It's brown.
Okay.
So
Colored.
Yeah, colored. First time I heard that, Lena Horn had what she called a sepia review in New York City. And I asked her about it, and she told me the whole story on that sort of thing.
Did John Dillinger?
Yeah.
Did he ever
No.
stop at your place?
No. He stopped in Waterloo, though. Freddie Floyd got killed in Waterloo. In a cabin up there in one of the motels. In those days, the motels were mainly cabins. You could pull your car right in beside them. And they were truly motels.
Now, in order to you to get into this business, did you have to take some kind of schooling, management, business?
Everything I got into, I wanted to be the best at it. So I went to Michigan State to the Kellogg Foundation. They have hotel management courses and cooking and all that, how you manage the food and all those things. Because I started a chicken shack too. Whatever there was to make money that people would need, I wanted to be there. And I tried to be, you can tell by these books, I tried to be as good as I could be in everything I got into. When I was in the state legislature, I got good enough to be put on political science symposiums over at Iowa State and at Drake and different places. Got pretty well acquainted with different professors around the country.
You had told me a story of the little Jewish boy.
Yeah, a Jewish man.
A Jewish man.
Yeah.
This was right in the busiest time of year.
Yeah, I began to think I was having hallucinations or something, maybe because I was working too hard. I still don't know for sure. But I don't hesitate to tell it because I don't care what people think. It meant something special to me. I had Bob Hauser and Sattler, he's now one of the best contractors around. He worked for me. They were all doing a great job. We had a lot of Czechoslovakian kids and a couple of German kids, a lot of the blacks and one Spanish kid. We hired them from Iowa City and Waterloo, different ones. I had the motel going strong. I had the floor cleaning business going strong. The store was going well. People were hiring my band and my group there, and I was pretty tired. Sitting out in front of the motel one night, I just kind of took off and let everybody run things. I always trusted people, because after I trained them, I knew they could handle it. I kind of dozed off, but I remember it seemed like real bright lights went on. And a guy came walking down from the old Whitwer Road, East Post Road. Came walking down there, and I said, "Jeepers!" He looked like a Jewish man, the way he had his beard and everything, and the ones I'd seen in movies, not here in this town. I said, he said, "How you doing, Cecil?" I said, "Well, I'm tired, but I think things are going well." I had a big sign up over my motel because I kept everybody. Love your neighbor. I had a sign up there on that. He told me he liked that sign. Told me to keep on doing what I was doing, and probably would never have to worry about money anymore because nobody ever went hungry around me, or nobody went homeless around me. I had several buildings, and if somebody came along with a family and needed work, I'd put them to work and give them a place to stay. So people, I think the word got around, they'd come and go. Anyway, this little man told me to keep on helping people the way things were going. Headed on down Bertram Road. About that time, my oldest boy, Richard, he came up and said, Dad, Mom wants you to come down to eat. I said, did you see that guy going down that way? He said, what guy? He said, the dogs aren't barking. I didn't see anybody. I always thought I didn't know if it was a dream or what. I've talked to several ministers that said it was, we don't want you to think you're nuts, but that was really a vision.
Somebody was trying to tell you something.
Yeah, that you were doing it right, Anyway, I never did forget it. It really made an impression on me. And I used to hesitate to tell some people, but Governor Hughes was a very religious man. And he used to ask me to repeat it to different places he and I would go to talk, because he believed in it. He would tell me about seeing a vision of his brother just before his mom died. And it made a connection for him, So they were nice guys.
Cecil, what time period was this when you operated this motel out there? What time period would this have been?
I would say from about 57 and 58 until I went to the state legislature in 1964. Then I thought the best thing for us is to cut the ties here and sell all that, and not have to worry about rent or any of those things. Because it was a whole new thing to me to be in the state legislature. So I went back to the books and started trying to learn how to be a good legislator. And I got some good advice from a lot of people because I was not afraid to ask. And I began to read the weekly newspapers around the state, see what the people were concerned about. That was another good way of finding out. And the editorials in the newspapers meant a lot. Chamber of Commerces from the different cities, they'd let you know what their thinking was. Cedar Rapids Chamber of Commerce, where I had been chairman, they had a whole review team for all the bills in the state legislature, and they would give you their notebooks and let you read those. So I think when I went down there, I was fully knowledgeable on everything we wanted to get done, and we got most of it all done.
Was this an elected position?
Yes. State legislature.
So that had to make you feel pretty good that the public...
It made me feel extra good. In this town, and I wouldn't hesitate to say it if you wanted to check, but I think I'm the only black man in America ever elected by an all-white constituency, and it was right here in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
And this was probably due to the way you led your life throughout your lifestyle in the...
I think you're right. I think I was running for office for a lifetime, but I didn't know it. But I was preparing for whatever might come because I kept on studying and I kept on learning and trying to know as much as I could about everything there was to know anything about. That was worthwhile,
Then in 1967, weren't you appointed by Governor
Harold Hughes
as
Employment Security Commissioner?
What did this involve?
For employment security, you have the offices here in Cedar Rapids. I think now they call it workforce. That was a forerunner to that. We had in all major cities, we had an employment office. In the smaller cities, we didn't build a building, but we would rent space from the city or the county and have an office there where you could go to secure work. We used to put together all these thousands of young people that detassel corn in the state of Iowa. We found jobs for people with it. We would train people for the big industries that wanted to come to town. And thank God the bill I passed to get the technical schools, they really supplied the people for us, and are still doing it. And they're growing by leaps and bounds. They teach people to work, and to me that was one of the crowning things that I wanted to have in the state of Iowa, and I led the charge. I handled it on the state legislature floor.
Didn't you also teach black history?
I passed a bill to teach history of all minorities. And Governor Hughes called up, and even though he was a lay minister, he'd swear once in a while. He said they don't know how to teach black history, but they're willing to let you come and show them. So the Department of Education arranged for me to start a black history class at North High School in Des Moines. And they came all over the state to learn black history. So I became a teacher. And I kept the letter. It's here somewhere. I thought it was such a nice letter. They told me they didn't think they could ever replace the teacher like Cecil was. And that, it made me feel like I did what I was supposed to do. But I did my homework, and I thought if I was going to be up there, these teachers were all pros, and I better not leave myself vulnerable, so I wanted to be the best there was, and they told me I was. I kept that letter.
Was you active with the NAACP?
Yes, I did. Yeah. There was Urban League and NAACP, but I like what NAACP did. You never did see them out marching or burning or making noise. They did nice things. They worked with people, and that's what I believed in doing. Talk to people. Don't fight with people. And so I did stick with NAACP all the way.
And didn't you also write a training manual for the...
With the Department of Labor, when I went to Kansas City and became the assistant administrator for the Department of Labor. And because of my work in the state, I ran the employment service section for 10 states, and for unemployment insurance. And the IPERS fund, I also directed it here, so I had a chance to do all of these things. When I got into the state government, and they asked me to be the director of equal opportunity, I said, do you have a manual? They said, no. Do you have some parts of the Code of Federal Regulations that deal with this? No. So they put me on a detail in Washington, D.C., and put me down in the basement, and me and a PhD, I would tell him what to say, and he'd put it on paper and make it legal looking. So I wrote the manual and the training manual for equal opportunity, and some parts of Part 64 of the Code of Federal Regulations to fit that into contracts and all that sort of thing. Another wonderful experience for me, an educational experience.
Cecil, in having all of these different jobs and responsibilities, you must have met a lot of important people that in government at the time. This photo of you shaking hands with Mr. Nixon, what was the occasion there?
Mr. Nixon, when I went into director of Job Corps, he wanted to name that other black fellow there.
To the left?
Yeah, he was the head of Urban League, and he wanted to build a Job Corps in Louisville, Kentucky, and name it for him. So I got to know him pretty well doing that. And so I got to meet Sergeant Shriver, former Kennedy, but he was head of Job Corps at the time for the National Job Corps. I had a chance to meet these people, and then they began to ask me these questions about doing those things. Yeah. I think the outstanding thing out of kind of squeezing here so we don't lose out, I got a call once from Houston, Texas. They said they had a black fellow down here, young sir. He thought he was a fighter. I wanted to know if I could get him into Clearfield, Utah, because a friend of mine from Des Moines, Doc Brodus, former fighter, was my phys education teacher. And I said, what's this kid's name? He said, George Foreman. So we got him into Clearfield, Utah. And I heard him just the other night talking about going to Clearfield. And He kept Doc Brodus in his corner every place he fought until Doc passed away. He was out of Des Moines, Iowa. But I said, how did you handle him, Doc? He said, I met him at the airplane, took him down to the gymnasium and taught him what fighting was, and then I taught him how to fight. I said, boy, he sure did a good job. But to me, that was a kind of a crowning thing. And,
Yes.
I didn't really have a chance to even touch the man, but we had pictures of him waving the flag when he won the Olympics, and we had him. He let us use his picture and his name, and we had it all over every place to help recruit young people.
Yeah. Is this what Job Corps was all about?
Yeah, it was to take kids that weren't getting along well in the system. Not dumb kids, but they were bored with the school, and they were out doing things they shouldn't do.
They needed guidance.
Needed guidance and some place to help them burn up that energy.
Yeah.
And we decided we'd teach them to work, and as long as they didn't show out, that's what we call being smart alecks. We would pay them to be there, but we wouldn't give it to them. We'd keep until they finished the course and left us. So they left us not broke, but we'd have some money, and they'd leave us with clothes because they'd buy clothes with what they worked for. We didn't let them have it all at once. We learned them, teach them how to use their money. I started a course to teach kids how to balance a checkbook and catch the bus and save some money for this and that and the other. Don't go out and blow it all on the weekend. Something that I knew there was some bad patterns that some of them had fallen into.
You wrote a book, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And the name of it was?
Fly in the Buttermilk.
Why that name?
I labeled that because there's only 1.2% black in the whole state of Iowa. And in Cedar Rapids, it's 2.2. The kids at school would not be on the team at the extracurricular activities we had, or different play in the class picture. So you look like a fly in the buttermilk. So I decided to name the book that because over the lifetime, not just here. I have a picture in here in England when I received an award in England in 1965. I was flying the buttermilk there too. The only one out there in front of the House of Parliament. But I noticed inside that they were black knights back in the old days and all that. So it was not unusual for them to see a black over there. But I named it that for that reason. And then it's a life story of Cecil Reed.
I read that, Cecil, and that's a tremendous story.
So many times that people would tell me, see, the first time I went to Harlem, I saw so many blacks, I was scared. I said, so was I. I never saw so many blacks in my life either. Yeah.
What year did you publish this book?
That came out in 1993. Yeah, 93. I was still in Kansas when they put it out. It's interesting. I was writing that book, and I was in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, and the lady that was working with me, I would see her on weekends in Colorado because I was teaching out there at the University of Colorado at the time for the Veterans Administration. We wrote that book. She was an author already, so she was trying to find a publisher. The lady in Shepherdstown called University of Iowa and said, "Oh, sure, yeah, he's a local boy. We'll take care of that right here." So that was a wonderful thing for me, for the University of Iowa, to carry the book and publish it.
Yeah. I can imagine you were asked to do a lot of public speaking throughout your.
Oh my, yes, so many civic meetings,
Civil rights and
and civic organizations. You know, Rotary, Optimus, Linn. There wasn't a lot of blacks to go around, so I belonged to 3 of them. So, because I wanted to be there and have my presence known. And then I would be called on college campuses to do symposiums on political science. And I consider myself a kind of a consultant in management, especially in the human relations side. So I was called on all over the country. There's not many college campuses I haven't been on. And tech schools was my forte. I love that. So I talked in every state for the National Association of Community College Trustees and the National School Boards Association. I stuck with education because I believe in it. And I think that's why my boys were going into educational enterprises, and my daughter was into the same. For me, I don't think there's anything else more important. I hope one day will be able to pay teachers better than we pay football players.
Yeah. Cecil, was your wife, Evie, was she very supportive through all of these years and through all of your endeavors and your jobs and your assignments?
You know, at one time, she used to go with me, but she's kind of bashful, but I'd have her get up there and do some talking too. She was real good at reciting poetry. I always have her pick out some nice poem that kind of fit with everything else.
Did she help you in your businesses in the...
No, boy, there she really did. She was such a good bookkeeper. H&R Block wanted to hire her. She was really good. And I was in so many things I needed her bad.
Did she ever...
A man named Harry Concan that used to run a big bookkeeping place up over the Czechoslovakian on the bank down on 3rd Street. He taught her, and he said she was one of the best students he ever had. Harry moved to Los Angeles, but I'm sure glad Ev stayed with me because she took care of all the payroll and the money you had to set aside for unemployment comp and all that stuff, and met it right on the barrelhead. We never had a problem with income tax or anything. She did it just beautiful.
Cecil, of all the jobs and all the different things you've done in your life, when you think back, was there any particular one that you truly enjoyed the most?
I enjoyed talking to people. I've come to the point where they have me come, I guess in baseball you'd call me the finisher. No matter what they teach, I go in and pull it together at the end of the last day, usually the last 3 days, and because I like to get to know the people and talk to them and have them share with me. But I just love that, whatever it is, it almost like love. Every class I have, not one person in the class don't hug me. Men, women, or children, or wherever it is. And they stand up. For 27 years, only one time they didn't stand up. That's exhilarating, you know.
Yes, it is.
At my age, a lot of people are sitting around or can't move, and so I feel blessed.
Yeah. Did you ever, I want to ask you when you retired, but I don't know what to ask you what you retired from. You had so many jobs.
I retired from the United States government, Department of Labor. I had been with them around almost 30 years and worked in many different capacities. At the same time, when I was in government, you couldn't charge. Anybody that wanted you to talk, you had to go, and you'd stay on the payroll, but the government would provide you. So I worked with unions, and I worked with associations of different educational systems. And like I told you, I went with the Community College Trustee and the Department of Education and the National Association of Educators, and worked in their national office. They called it the Blue Heaven, that beautiful view building the education has. I worked in University of Chicago, University of Colorado, University of East Arizona State, up in different parts of California. I just think I've been blessed, and people still hear me and want me to come.
Yeah.
I feel good about that.
See, so I want to take you back in time. I wasn't going to ask this because I didn't know if we'd have the time about it. But in our previous interview, you was telling me back in Missouri, in the early days before you come to Cedar Rapids, as a child, you witnessed a riot in St. Louis.
It was the same year I was born. All I remember was reading and hearing what happened during that period. I was born that year, 1913. That's when the great St. Louis riot was.
Tell us about that. What you remember of it.
As you know, Dad looked like a white man, so he was able to see some things, and that other blacks would have been afraid to be near. One of them was Dad I used to hear him tell Mom, he didn't, I guess us kids listened in on everything. He was telling about a black lady pregnant, and they cut her stomach open, and that never did leave him. He said he would get angry every time he thought about that. And how people could even do such a thing. And the way blood was running down off the Washington Street Bridge from the black people that were getting killed, running and hollering, and I can only picture what I was hearing them talk about.
Were these slaves that he was talking about?
No. Slavery was over. 50 years when I was born. Yeah. It was still the hate that was there, especially in the southern states. Some northern states, I guess, the same, but only 4 states in the whole United States didn't have a lynching. Only 4 states in the entire United States. But even back in the days when you were traveling with the bands and the dancing, once in a while you'd see a black guy hanging in the trees. Or you could see a fire where they had burned him to death. And then in our time, that man in Texas, they burned him and put him on a chain and drug him. I guess in my mind, I love people so much, I don't know, I couldn't hate you guys like that. I wouldn't even know you in the first place at first. But I love everybody. I couldn't see why people would do things like that. But I remember Billie Holiday used to sing Strange Fruit, and she wrote that song about the guys hanging in the trees.
Cecil, you're such a compassionate man. I want to get your... what did you think of what happened on 9/11 of last year, the bombing of the exploding of the World Trade Center?
I never saw or never believed that anybody could have that kind of evilness in them to do that kind of thing. Innocent people that they didn't know each other, go in there and wreck a place where they were at work, trying to be moms and dads and daughters and sons. I almost cried when I sat here. I was sitting here all by myself. I said, how in the world? I thought our civilization had moved past that kind of thing. And to me, we're still back. And I said, well, I don't know what bothers me. They're living in caves, some of them. And I don't mean that against any religion or anything. But people that would do such a thing as that is the ones I'm talking about.
Cecil, you had to have touched an awful lot of lives in your lifetime. You had to make a difference in a lot of people's lives.
That's what I sure tried to do. Cared enough to make a difference. And try to get others to do it, because you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
You got to talk to people about helping people, letting them know that there's people out there in the street in this country who don't have a home, who don't have a place to live. Some of them, and I learned a lot in Job Corps. A young man that lived out in front of the 7-Eleven because they had lights on all night so he could study. Voice up in the sewer. But he made his way through school, and now he's one of the best preachers in the country. I know it's possible if you can get people to keep on trying and keep on talking. And I'd like to see us talk about more of that sort of thing. Yeah. I know it don't sell like the crap does it nowadays. I'm going to keep on trying to talk about it, and maybe a few other people will. And I think if we all care enough to make a difference, that great architect that keeps his universe in order steps in and says, that's good. Yeah. We're going to make it happen.
Cecil, the Cedar Rapids History Center, the Linn County Historical Society would like to thank you very much for sharing your memories with us. That's been very enjoyable.
I sure thank them for doing what they're trying to get done, and they're on their way now. The building is in progress. Yeah.
Did he have any grandchildren? We didn't mention that.
Yeah, we showed the picture of him.
But is that the only grandchildren he had?
Say that again.
The grandchildren. Mike's, was that the only grandchildren he had?
Oh, no. My son Dick has 2 grandchildren.
Did you have any? Did you have
I don't
any?
Have their pictures.
Yeah. He said early on he didn't have any.
I have their pictures in the basement, but they're much younger. Unless if you want to copy those.
But you have a total of 5 then, or more?
You,
No, that's okay.
Cecil, for the record here, how many grandchildren did you end up with?
9 grandchildren and 12 great-grandchildren.
Carol had how many grandchildren?
Carol had 7.
7.
Hey, maybe I got more than I said. Carol had 7.
You better get this right.
Yeah. Mike, because Mike's son in Louisville, Kentucky has 5. That's a great one. Carol's boy is 4, and 3 is 7.
How many great grandchildren then?
That's what I'm counting now.
Okay. Yeah.
7 and 5, and Dick says 3 more. That's 10.
10.
Yeah.
I won't embarrass you by asking what their names are.
That's for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Thank you very much.
It's sure nice being with you guys. You're very nice.